everyone that has shown up. Oh, let me hit the recording. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope you have pen and paper to take notes because I will be dropping some noteworthy information. So I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides to share. Thomas, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, 1 second here. You should now have the rights to share your screen, Farrah.
Okay, let me see. Hold on. Share screen. Okay, there it is. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Yes, okay. All right, and then if anyone has questions that come up while I'm going through this, this is pretty casual, so if you just want to unmute and like jump in and be like, hey, Farrah, I got a question, wait, it's fine. Or if you want to type it in the chat, you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's fine. But tonight we're going to talk about setting boundaries while dating. So what is the point of having solid boundaries? So when you think of boundaries, tell me what comes to mind. You can just unmute yourself and tell me what comes to mind. Boundaries. What does that mean to you? Anybody?
Rules.
Rules? Somebody said rules? Rules for who?
Yourself and for the person that you're dating. Like if I have a rule that I don't want to be on the phone after 11 o'clock, for example.
Good example. Yes, that would be an example of a boundary. And what is the point of having that boundary? Anybody?
Setting the standards, setting the standards of respect for yourself and your time, your space.
Absolutely, setting the standard for your time and space. So another reason to have boundaries is so that you can spend time in less reaction and more response. Another reason for having solid boundaries is to feel confident in how you navigate through dating. When you are aware that, listen, at this time in my life, I am very certain that I want X. I want to find a husband. I want to find a boyfriend. I want just a companion. Then you're not going to bother to waste time on someone that's talking about something that you're not interested in. And when you have solid boundaries, you feel confident to let them know right away. So that way your time is not wasted and their time is not wasted. So the point of having solid boundaries is to become more confident you are and what you want and what you're moving towards when it comes to dating and relationships. It also gives you room for exploration, right? So if you have solid boundaries, then you feel a certain level of safety to date someone because you have clarified and communicated your boundaries. They agreed, their actions are showing that they have agreed. And so you start to feel a little bit safer getting to know this person and bringing down your walls little by little. So those are the point of having boundaries. Who has trouble enforcing their boundaries? You may have them, but when it comes to enforcing them, when it comes to dating and relationships, who has trouble with that part? Anybody? Does anybody have trouble enforcing those boundaries?
Most
Nobody?
definitely.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, we're trying to unmute. Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, so let's talk about how to create these boundaries, specifically when it comes to dating. So it's two components to this. There's what I teach my clients is optimizing your calendar, especially for professionals or busy people. You have a family, you're a single mom, you have, a career that's, got you busy. Maybe you're working and going to school. Maybe you're just doing things that requires a lot of your time and focus, but you still would like to date and find that romantic connection. So optimizing the calendar, I'm going to talk about that first. This is so important. So dating takes time. Okay. I know when you see it on TV and you see it in movies, it just looks like they were walking down the street and they bumped into somebody and that was their person and they went on one date and now they're in a relationship and everything is wonderful. But that is not how dating works. Dating takes time. If you are someone that is doing online dating, on average, that takes about 10 hours a week. That is a part-time job. So online dating, you got, you create your profile, and I'm just talking about if you're on one platform. So if you've got 2 to 3 to 6 different platforms that you're on, you're probably not even doing it because it's too much to keep up with. But you create your profile. Then you've got to scroll through pictures or whatever you do on that platform to find someone you're interested in, or someone finds you. And then, they send you messages through the platform for you to start talking. You talk, maybe it's going well, you put it on, you move it to text on your cell phone. Now you're texting back and forth. By the time that week is over, you have on average spent about 10 hours of your time doing that. So I'm going to tell you what happens with people that have things going on, they work, they have kids, whatever. It gets put on the back burner. Messages go ignored. They have every intention to want to do the dating process, but then they get in it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is taking a bunch of my time and this is uncomfortable. So I'm out. I'm not going to do this. This is why I can't do it. It just takes too much time. But if you optimize your time on your calendar, because if this is important to you, you schedule it, you block out time for it. That is what I always suggest to do. That is the first step for creating boundaries. Optimize your calendar. So find the days in the week that work best for you, where you have 1 to 2 hours to scroll through profiles or communicate or go on a date or whatever it is you're doing that fits your schedule. If you are looking at your calendar and you're like, Farrah, I don't see any time. Well, then the question is, do you really want to date? And then that would be the other point of knowing why you want to date. So sometimes we want to date because we feel like that's just what I should be doing. I mean, I'm single. What else am I supposed to be doing? My parents want me to get married. My friends are all married. My friends all have boyfriends and girlfriends and they're having kids. So I feel like I should just be doing the same thing. Well, you got to be really clear about why you want to date, because in the end, it's going to be your time and energy that will be utilized to get to that result that you're hoping for. So that's what I would start with first is, okay, and I do mean literally look at your Outlook calendar or Gmail calendar, whatever it is you use now for scheduling meetings, scheduling play dates, scheduling outings with your friends. If you're scheduling that stuff, it's because it's important to you and you don't want to miss it. So you should be scheduling your dating activity as well. And then that will tell you really quickly what you have time for. It'll also let you know that when you meet someone and they're not checking the boxes or meeting the criteria, sorry, Stanley, this is not going to work. Thank you. It was nice, but I got to go. Because you know how much time you have for dating. It's already very clear and established. Any questions on the calendar or knowing why you want to date? Oh, and I forgot one other thing about the calendar. Schedule downtime. Schedule your downtime, like you're resting, you're pampering, you're restoring, your me time. Schedule that too when you're dating, because the dating, the connecting with the different people and going out and coming home and all that can take a toll, because like I said, on average 10 hours a week. one date, going on one date is about 2 hours. And that's 2 hours of talking and energy exchange. So when you think of yourself in that process, how do I usually deal with meeting new people and exchanging energy and being in their space for 2 hours at a time? Does that tire me out? Would I be tired after that? Would I need a little me time to recuperate? If so, schedule it. Put it in your calendar.
I had a date recently that lasted 8 hours, just at the same place talking. And it was great, but it was like it was a lot of time. Like I was like, ooh. And we met at 1:30 for lunch. We didn't leave till 9. And
Wow.
we were in that place talking. And I was like, ooh, I have missed like so much that I was supposed to do today. That was not how that was supposed to happen. It was great, but still,
Yeah.
it was much.
Yeah. And so that probably creates a little bit of stress. You know, once it's over, you're like, oh, this was great. I had fun. But now you're back home and now you're kind of like a little stressed and tense because you're like, okay, where am I going to fit these things that I was supposed to do today somewhere else in the week or wherever? And it can create this resistance for the next time you go on a date because you may be like, I don't know if I want to go because I don't want to spend my whole day.
Well, no.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't, wait a minute, we left at 3. It was 5 hours the next day. It was 5 hours. Yeah, I got to schedule that. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so you see how much time that takes up, even though you're enjoying yourself, but it's like, this is really taking up time. And for not all, but for some people, that can, if you have, other priorities that are important to you, that can create some havoc from a mindset perspective, from an emotional perspective, from a stress perspective. So we're going to actually talk about that, what you said about like a date, a 5-hour date, when we get to emotional boundaries, because that is a thing as well that can creep into the emotional boundary aspect. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Communication boundaries. So communication boundaries, this one I think is probably the most difficult because most people don't like confrontation, and they take that if you're communicating a no, or I don't want to, or you're not available, as like a form of rejection. So let's just start with self-perception will determine your communication style. So if you perceive yourself as being like overwhelmed or stressed out, or you feel like this person's like coming at you to attack you, you may feel like you need to be harsh and lash out. If you perceive yourself as someone that's, I have to be nice, I want to be nice, I don't want to be rude, I just don't like confrontation, I can't handle it, then you may not communicate at all what's really going on or what you really need from this person that you're dating. And so then that creates other issues down the road. Only you know your triggers. So when you start dating someone, they don't know your triggers, right? When they do something or say something that hits your hot button, they have no idea. They're just, figuring it out as they go, and vice versa. You don't know either. So sometimes when that happens, communicating that boundary to let them know that, hey, you pressed a hot button with that comment you said when we were having the discussion about blah, 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 because I went through something with my ex or whatever, and it's just sensitive for me. That's what you would have to communicate. Like, you would have to have that boundary there to say what needs to be said and be able to receive what needs to be received should that be on the other foot. Does that make sense? A lot of times, I always give the example of the oatmeal love story. And it was when me and my partner were making oatmeal one morning, and he makes his oatmeal totally different than me, totally different than me. And I feel like I make really good oatmeal. Like nobody could tell me that I couldn't make oatmeal. But he felt the same way. And I could see he's judging how I'm making my oatmeal. And if you're one of those people that you don't like people shaming your food or talking about your food or questioning what you're doing with your food, I'm one of those people, like I take it personally. Then that whole thing could have went left, and it could have turned into a blow up, and it could have exploded into something it didn't need to explode into. So I had to stop and communicate my boundaries around my oatmeal. Like, that sounds really silly, but it's these small itty bitty things when you're dating and in relationships that turn into these mountains, that turn into these huge arguments. And you're like, what happened? And so that's just a small example of what I mean. Like, only you know your triggers, only you can communicate to someone and say, listen, I don't like it when you do whatever because of this. It makes me feel like this, or I'm not used to this. And in the same respect, communicating what you do like, what you would like to experience with the person. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the triggers? Communicating your boundaries around that? No? Okay.
Hey, Farrah.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, I would just emphasize the importance of taking the time, and you mentioned this, but taking the time with yourself to realize your triggers. Because I think, I think that's probably problem number one most of the time, is that you don't realize it until after the fact. And then you feel kind of silly. You're like, oh, well, maybe I did overreact, or, it's one of those things, but that can only happen so many times before you sit down.
Right.
And, I need to take a minute for myself and get myself together, because it's not fair to the other people, but it's also just not fair to you if you're setting yourself up and you don't really know him.
Exactly. And sometimes you don't even know something's a trigger until you're in the situation, and all of a sudden this emotion comes up and you're like, what, where, why is that happening? I don't understand. It must be the other person's fault. I'm feeling this explosion of emotion, so it must be their fault that I'm feeling like this. And then, like Thomas was saying, that sitting in that just to understand why that was coming up is some self-awareness to understand, okay, maybe this is a trigger for me and I need to explore why I felt this way when he or she said this or he or she did that. Yeah, definitely a good point. Anybody else? No? Okay. Another communication boundary, are you the ghoster? So if you've experienced being ghosted, then you know how that feels. It upsets you and you don't understand why. You're kind of stuck in this feeling of like, you want to know, like, what did you do? Like, what did I do that they ghosted me? But I will tell you, when you shut down, so dating, you're in a relationship and something's going on, and there comes a point where maybe you don't like the way something is going, or you don't like what's being said. When you shut down and refuse to communicate, you are essentially ghosting. You are present in the place, or on the call, but when you shut down and don't give the person the opportunity to hear what it is that you need to communicate so they can adjust, changes, explain what they meant with whatever was being communicated or whatever was going on, that shutting down and essentially fleeing is a form of ghosting. I call it a form of ghosting, because you are no longer there and you are no longer receiving anything or willing to share anything. Does anyone, can anyone relate to that?
Yes, I can. But I do have a question. So once you're ghosted, at what point in time do you just move on from it and leave it alone?
Well, I guess it depends on this, on what's going on in the situation. So if you're just meeting someone, and let's say maybe you've gone on a date or two and you've been communicating fine, and then all of a sudden the communication stops from the other person, I would think after 24 hours, there's been nothing said at all, then you should be prepared to cut your losses. Now, of course, there are outliers to every situation. They could have, I would hate that if they were in an accident or something, but I think your intuition, your internal GPS will guide you to know when someone's telling the truth or when, you know, they're just blowing smoke up your rear end. But in most cases, I say 24 hours. That's the max before you're like, okay, they're not, I guess this is done. I will tell you, I used to be the ghoster. Like when I was dating before my current partner, and I will admit, even still, because this is something I constantly work on. It's not like a one and done deal where you're like, I'm perfect now, I don't have to do anything. No, it's ongoing. Sometimes I get in my feelings and it shuts down, and I have to remind myself that it's not going to solve anything. If I do not communicate to him, if I don't let him know what I'm feeling or what I'm interpreting, he can't adjust, he can't explain, we can't move forward. So it's a very real thing that happens, but it can be resolved.
So I didn't know you explained it like that. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I was married, so to avoid drama and all, you know, what I went through before, the arguments, because it was never like, even if I went to him calmly, it was always taken on a defense, and it would turn into something big. He would never listen to me and try to understand how I was feeling. It would just turn into something major. So now I don't say anything. But I didn't realize, someone recently told me, well, that's not fair. And I call myself not making a new person deal with what I dealt with before, but my actions, that's how I would deal with it, because I just don't want to argue. I had so many, in a marriage, I had so many years of, you know, drama and the air being thick, that now I don't want to deal with this so much. I just won't say anything. I'll give myself time to get over it. And then I'm like, whatever. But what I have noticed is that it'll still resurface, because if I don't talk about it, it'll happen again. And then I'm feeling the same way.
Yep. Yes. And then whenever, this was my experience, when it would come up that next time, then he or my partner at that time would be like, what are you talking about? Like, what? He didn't know what I was talking about, because technically my body and my mind is still processing that happened a month ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever. He's moved on. So not only now was I bringing it up as like, it's important right now, or this is bothering me, or you know, you're against me type energy, but then he felt attacked, because he was like, why would you sit on that for so long and then expect me to have an answer for you or have a way to resolve it when I don't know what you're talking about? And I can't remember what you said about this 2 weeks ago or a month ago or a year ago. Yeah. So it really creates, like, it's just a downward spiral. So because I would not feel comfortable, like just like kind of like how you were saying, like, because I don't like arguing. I don't like. So what I found works for me is asking questions. So if I ask inquisitive questions about the situation that I'm bothered by, because I'm like investigating, I'm trying to figure out where is the bothering come from? What is it exactly that's bothering me? Then it's a discussion versus an argument.
Okay.
And
That's a
can
good
I,
idea.
and if I could piggyback on Crystal and your comment a little bit, I like Crystal. I'm either hot or cold. I'm either the person that goes in 100 and on 150, or I used to be, or I'm the person that would fully shut down. But again, in growth, you kind of figure out that one, it's not going to go away if it's one of your triggers. And I've really been trying to focus on. To Thomas's point, what are my triggers? There were triggers that I had that I didn't really realize it was me. I was like, well, you know what? Men are just like this, or this is just his personality, or just whatever. But so much of the issue was actually mine. And so, and especially in a new relationship, it's about, like we said, explaining to that person, this is a trigger. So one, in the future, because we can't expect them to just know. So in the future, he'll know, okay, you know what, this is one of those times. So if her body language changes or whatever your mode of showing that you're upset is, because you were honest, and maybe in not even in a stressful time, maybe you talk about it over coffee or when you're not in the situation, to say, you know what, because you know that whatever happened last week hit one of your triggers. And sometimes it's not about talking about it right now, because if you're a hot-headed person, that might not be the time, because it will incite an argument or whatever. So it might take a time that you ask for permission to bring up the conversation. Or to Farrah's point, you ask questions kind of around so you have a better understanding of even where they're coming from, because we all speak different languages. Things that are hot points to me might not be hot points to my partner. So it's just really when you're getting to, even people who've known each other for years still have to work at it. We still have to work at it.
Yes.
By knowing what's important and realizing when you've crossed over one of those lines.
Yes, absolutely, Phoebe. And I will say for me, because when I am in that emotional state, I know for me to think clearly, I have to tell my partner, I need to talk about this, but I need to excuse myself for like 15 to 20 minutes. So I tell him, if I just left for 15 to 20 minutes, then he doesn't know. He's just like, why'd you walk out? Now he's upset because he takes it as I dismissed him because I just walked out. So
Absolutely.
I've had to be accountable and say, listen, I'm bothered by this, but I need like 15 to 20 minutes to get my head together. And then I want to talk about it with you.
Or 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Did someone else have a comment? Yeah. And I have, like, I admit, like, I can be fly by the mouth. So that's why I take the 15 to 20 minutes, because like if I'm in my feelings, like it'll just like pop out. And then I'm like, oops, I shouldn't have said that. That was not nice to say. So I excuse myself, but I let them know that, and I'll be back. Okay, the fourth thing is know your no. So I call this like your deal breakers, like be very clear about your deal breakers. So my deal breakers for me is I don't like smokers. I don't like smokers. So if they smoke or vape, whatever, no, I don't care how cute they are. I don't care how much money they have. I don't care what their job titles, what kind of car they drive. No, it's a no. So whatever your deal breakers are, you have to be very clear about that. And if you were dating someone and you didn't find out one of your deal breakers until like date 2, or after you gave them your phone number and you started talking on the phone or whatever, at that time, don't ghost. Don't not respond to the message he sends you on the dating platform. Tell him, you mentioned that you're a smoker. I do not date smokers. And that's you stand by that. And that way he knows there's clarity between both of you. Does anyone have trouble communicating their deal breakers?
I used to, and I've gotten better with it now. It just had to come from knowing my emotions, or recognizing my emotions and what those signs were. And it took years and years and years of you know, just going through heartbreak, lashing out, just because I didn't know who I was. And I think these ingredients are so important in serving your singleness, you know, knowing your triggers. Like, these are the keys right here. And so now I don't have a problem with it. You know, it may hurt somebody's feelings, but I'd rather, you know, feed myself healthy, you know, coping skills, feed myself in my knowledge of knowing what my triggers are versus pour into somebody, you know, pour into something that's going to be unhealthy. You know, that doesn't work well for the both of us. So I think you're really hitting right on the head with this. But yeah, I struggled with that for a long time. And I think most guys, you know, y'all can back me up. It's hard for us to even express our emotions. And so I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about that. But yeah, it's definitely hard because of upbringing. It could be experiences, environmental stressors. The list goes on and on, but definitely it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. One thing I forgot to include on the communicate the boundaries. So when you're going through the dating process, I always say that dating is about beginnings and endings, right? Everyone can't be a beginning forever. Like, it can't just keep going on for every person, you know? So you're dating to find the right person, whether it be the right person for a companion, the right person for marriage, the right person for a partnership. You're dating to find the right person. So therefore, there has to be some endings involved. And sometimes being the person that's doing the ending can be harder than being the person receiving the ending. So what I mean is, when you're the one issuing the, listen, I don't want to date you anymore, or, you know, it's been nice getting to know you, but I don't think this is going to work message, that can be harder than receiving that message. Just depends sometimes. But I have heard both men and women say to me that I kind of don't like dating because I don't want to have to be the one to end it. And it's like, well, that's what dating is. It's a series of beginnings and endings. So the communicating of the boundaries is for the purpose of getting good at ending things when it's time to end things. Does anyone have questions or comments around being the person issuing the rejection? I don't call it a rejection. I call it a letting them go, letting them live their life.
Setting them free.
Well, I would just, well, I just say it for myself, just as I've gotten older and have various experiences. I would say when I was younger, I would feel more guilty about setting my boundaries or my expectations or letting people down, if you will. Maybe out of fear of out of being too nice, essentially. But as I've gotten older, I've learned basically you actually show people love when you honest about what you want up front, and if this what they offering you is simply not what you looking for. So to me, basically, it's actually showing them love by respectfully rejecting them versus letting them tag along or. Yeah.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that, because that was my next point. Is like, you shouldn't be fearful or worried on either side of that, receiving the notice that this is over or giving the notice that this is over, because that is what emotional intelligence is, and that is giving love. You want the person to go on and have a best life and find what works for them. You want the same thing for yourself. So not speaking up because you're too scared to deliver the message is a very selfish thing to do. Any more comments or questions around that one?
I see a comment fair in the chat says have learned. Jamal says have learned to be more empathetic and tactful. Time progresses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Awesome. Anybody else before we move on to emotional boundaries?
Fair. I was just going to say that if we walk into the situation a little differently, or that's what I've learned, if you're not like, all hands and feet and all in at the very beginning, which is often moving too far too fast, then if you just go into it the right way, it sets you up. It sets both of you up to, it just sets you up better in the future, so that you weren't all hot and heavy in the beginning. And then the other person's like, or you're like, well, wait, what happened? Like it's almost overnight. If you just walk into it, literally getting to know the person, like Crystal said, we had a great time talking for hours, just getting, you should hopefully have some clarity, just in that. And if nothing else, the two of you have some kind of baseline and good understanding, so that if it does come to that, maybe you're both kind of feeling that way. Or even if you're not, you're on a different mental and emotional level, as opposed to the opposite.
Yes, that is a great segue, Thomas, to emotional boundaries. So, emotional boundaries, their interest in you does not equal their loyalty to you. So when you are first meeting people and they're really interested and you're texting all the time or sending messages across a platform or whatever, and you're interested in them and they're interested in you, and you're feeling the chemistry, that doesn't mean that they owe you their loyalty. It's simply the beginning stages of attraction, physical attraction in most cases. But a lot of times that interest in each other is mistaken for, oh, this is the one. I'm going to pour all of my time and energy and commitment into this person without really going through the process of understanding, is this the right person? And that you can only do that through time, right? So I want to speak on that, because a lot of times when we're dating and we're getting to know someone, and I will give you a real life example from a matchmaking client. Beautiful young lady.
Sorry, can I say that? You say that for me one more time. The emotional, you said emotional. It doesn't mean, say that it was, because that I gotta write down. Say that again.
Their interest in you doesn't equal their loyalty to you.
Okay, so their emotion, did you say their emotional interest doesn't mean their loyalty?
Well, any level of interest. So it could be an emotional interest, a physical interest, a spiritual interest. But when you're first meeting and you have what people call chemistry or a spark or whatever connection, sometimes that can be mistaken for, oh, this is the person. This is the person I need to pour all of my time and energy into because we have this great chemistry.
Got it. Okay.
And so we think that means, oh, now I'm committed to this person and this person is committed to me. Well, you're committing and, pouring all this time and energy in without really knowing, is this a person that is going to make a good partner for the long term, whether it's a marriage partnership, a soul partnership, a companionship, whatever. You really don't know yet. That can only happen through time.
Got it.
And so that's what I was saying. In the example I was going to give, young lady set her up. They were great date. They were on the date for a long time. So I always tell my clients 2 hours. The first date is 2 hours. And I say that for a very specific reason, because men and women interpret things differently. So with a woman, she interpreted that, oh, I'm interested in him. We have great conversation. He's attractive. We have a connection. And they spend all evening together. In public, they didn't go home together, but they spent all evening together. Her intent for the next relationship she wanted to get into was to move very slowly. But he interpreted her interest by giving him so much of her time on the first date and then again on the second date as, oh, she's really into me, like really into me. I can go ahead and make a move. She was like, no, 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 you cannot. But those words got crossed because she was not clear in her boundaries. She was giving him 7 to 8 hours per date because she really did enjoy his company. They really got along great. But because he's feeling the attraction between him, he's interpreting that as, oh, well, she wants to spend some time with me alone. I know it, I can feel it. That is not what she wanted. And that then quickly fizzled when he tried to make a move. She did not like that. And then it went the opposite direction. So being very clear with your emotional boundaries, I say that's not just for women, but for men too, because it can be the reverse. But because your time is your most valuable asset. You can always go create more money. You can't go create more time. So when you're giving that time, you are in a sense communicating something to the other person, whether you're aware of it or not. So that their interest in you does not equal their loyalty. That was my example for that. Her interest in him did not equal that she was going to give it up like he was anticipating in his mind, because he translated it as this. She's translating it as like, no, I just think you have good conversation and you're nice. Any questions around that example or comments?
Y'all should have had this before I had that 8-hour day.
And like I said, there's always outliers. So that's not like 100% all the time. Like, you, but knowing what her intent was for the next type of relationship, because she wants to be married. So she's like, I want to take things slow because I'm looking for my husband. Well, being that was the case, starting off like that, she sent the wrong communication to him because, she really did enjoy herself. I mean, and that happens. And you just have to be like, I'm having a great time, but you know what? I got to go to work tomorrow. And you do. You do got to go to work tomorrow. So you got to wrap it up. The next one, stop saying yes when you really mean no. This happens so much. I can't even tell you. Saying yes when you really mean no, which is kind of like a communication boundary, but it's also an emotional boundary because it is, I call it people pleasing. And when you're in that people pleasing energy, it really takes an emotional, it kind of hits your emotions differently, and it starts wearing on you to the point of exhaustion. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced emotional exhaustion because you are saying yes to things or yes to people, and on the inside, you really mean no. So it's this constant hitting, like bumping up against like a brick wall all the time, because on the inside, your spirit is like, no, I don't want to do this. I hate this. This is not for me. I'm uncomfortable, blah, 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 blah. But your outside physical, your mouth, is saying, yes, I would love to do that. I'll be there. Yes, I would like to go on another date. That creates emotional exhaustion. That's what I see a lot of times happen when people are like, I hate dating. I never want to date. I'm not doing it, because they've suffered from that. Any comments or questions around the saying yes when you really mean no? No. Speaking up for yourself now, so you have less reaction later. So also an emotional boundary. So sometimes it feels easier when someone pisses you off to have a reaction or to speak up for yourself, right? When someone's putting you in a corner, or someone's someone, oh, someone's phone. Someone is kind of like attacking you. Then you feel like, oh, I have to defend myself. I'm going to fight back. But if you would have spoken up earlier, then there would be no reaction. And that reaction also expends so much negative energy in most cases that it tires you out. Now you have less desire and less enthusiasm and less motivation for your goals, for the things you want to do in life, because you start feeling bad about yourself. Because you had this big reaction that's like anger or crying or cussing someone out or getting into a fight, like a physical fight, because you felt attacked because you didn't advocate for yourself earlier. So you feel like they're constantly poking at you. And it creates an emotional reaction. Any comments or questions on that one?
Does that happen? Hey, Farrah, good question. Have you experienced this between men and women when they are dating and they all think get married, and then they realize that they might have been a good fit for one another, and they have all these shouldas, or they have people around them that say, oh, they should have gotten married. They seen it, they saw the signs, but they didn't see it until later. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Is there help for that?
Yeah, so you have to stand to your truth when that happens. So that actually happened to me with my marriage. No one said anything though about like, oh, you shouldn't marry this person or you shouldn't be with this person. Like no one ever told me that. I found out through the process of marriage that we were not a good fit. And so I just had to stand up for myself and say it at that point. Now, I did value my marriage at that, to take the steps that I thought were the right steps to take, like seeking counsel from our pastor and, talking to a marriage therapist, like all those things. But when that didn't work, and I realized that my truth is we are not aligned, we will not be aligned, then I spoke up, and that's when I left my marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And that happens. I mean, like I said, relationships are a series of beginnings and endings. I mean, you would hope that, well, not hope, but you hope that the ending is death till you part, right? Someone passes away and that's how your relationship or your marriage ended. But that is not always the case sometimes. And for me, I had 2 young children and mimic what they see. So I was like, well, I mean, I'm probably going to catch some backlash for leaving my marriage, but do I want to be responsible for raising 2 kids, repeating what they're seeing in this relationship? I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to have to my kids about that later when they're like, Mom, why didn't you tell us it was like this? Why didn't you say that it was this? I don't want to have to do that. That's how I ended up where I was. That was the choice I made, and I stood by that. And I'm glad that I did, because my ex-husband went off. He found someone that makes him happy. She's a great stepmother to my son. I found someone that makes me happy. And so that was the decision I had to make.
Very good. Very good. What a testimony. There's a question in the comments, Farrah, if you want to answer it. It's from Joseph. And the question is, what if you don't know how to speak up for yourself?
If you don't know how to speak up, like, does that mean you don't know the words to say to speak up, or you don't have the strength to face the person that you're speaking up to?
Both.
Well, then I would say that you would need to seek help from a professional. So either like a therapist, and if you're not someone that likes to go to therapists, then seeking help through books and prayer and meditation, and just asking yourself. So one technique that I have used with clients that have a problem with speaking up for themselves is writing it out. What would you want to say to this person? And you write it out, everything, and you just let it flow. No editing, just let it flow. Or you can type it out, if it's on your laptop or whatever. You don't have to give them the letter or the writing. You don't have to mail it, but you have done the letting it out. And every time you do this, it gets easier and easier and easier. And the next time, not the very next time, but in a future time, when an opportunity comes up, you will start to feel more confident about communicating these words for speaking up for yourself, because you've practiced it multiple times because you wrote it out or typed it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does it?
Mhm.
So what happens if it's like, if it's an issue, but it's not really an issue though? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like,
It's an issue, but not an issue.
but it's not nothing big though. But it might comes up as something big.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Like, say when somebody have a problem with me, but I don't say nothing about them though. Like, I just brush it off because I don't really care. Yeah.
Well, is it that you don't care, or is it that you don't feel comfortable communicating back to them whatever may bother you about them?
Or yeah, that's that, yeah.
Yeah, because it sounds like you might care. It's just that you don't have maybe the right words, or you don't know how to articulate it.
Right.
So
and then
that,
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And I might not get the reaction that I want out of it, and or hear what the person has to say, because I already got in my mind what I want done or something like that. And I don't want to have to go off because of the reaction or something else, because I might have a problem of articulating what the next person had to say also.
Okay, so definitely the writing exercise would be really helpful for you for that. And the more that you write it out, the clearer things become, because sometimes you'll notice things that maybe you've been holding inside that you weren't aware of.
Right.
And when you read it back, you're like, oh, wow, I hear how this sounds.
Right.
Maybe if I said it like this, it would sound better and they would be able to accept it.
Okay. And especially like what happened if y'all are two different, but y'all are two alphas though at the same time? Like alpha male and alpha female.
And so an alpha male and an alpha female?
Yeah, like strong-minded.
That, I'm not going to say that doesn't work, because it can work, but both people have to respect when to surrender.
Okay.
So it's not that two alphas can't coexist. They can, but you would have to realize, like, okay, when she, and of course she would have to let you know, listen, when I feel this way, I want you to blah, blah, blah. Then you take heed to that and say, okay, I can do that for you. When I feel like this, I need you to blah, blah, blah. And she would need to be like, okay, I can do that for you. So the only way two alphas can work is that they have to be respectful of knowing when to surrender.
And then,
Yeah,
and then like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, brother. And then I think like two things that we get argued a little bit is like parenting and financial, because like we both get kids different ways, and it's like, man. But yes, parenting,
finances, and sex. Those are the things that people mostly fight about. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So those things, you're not going to do things the same all the time. It's impossible. You're an individual human being with a unique, designed from God, and so is she. You are not meant to do things the exact same. Otherwise, you'd be with yourself. There's just a duplicate of you. What's the point of that? So it's just appreciating what is done well from your partner and vice versa, them appreciating what you do well and bring to the relationship. It's not about doing things exactly the same. Because, as a kid growing up, I didn't need my parents to do everything exactly the same. I just needed to know that I was loved, taken care of, and I don't care what your kids say, there's a parent for this and there's a parent for this. I went to my dad when I needed something technical. I went to my mom when I needed something reassurance or something going on with school. That was their strengths. And so that was fine. That's the point, right? So yeah, you don't have to focus on that things are different. Instead, focus on what does each of us do well that we bring to the family.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yeah.
That's a
You're
good
welcome.
question during the
Yeah.
dating process too. Good job, Joseph.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and one thing I would add, Farrah, to that is like learning, especially when you have two strong personalities in a relationship, is really learning what battles to fight. Everything does not have to be a
Yes.
battle, and everything is not a competition. So if it's one of those things that's truly important to him, then you know what, you might just have to take an L on that one. Same thing with her. If it's one of those kind of deal breakers, this is going to affect our core relationship, then yeah, you know what, that's what relationships are about. I can step back on this thing that I might in my regular life, or like, I always use my work life. In my work life, I am super alpha. That's what I do. But when I cross the threshold, then I have to know that this is a relationship. This is not my job. I'm not the
Yeah.
boss. I don't call the shots. This is a partnership. And so it's really about it. Like you said, we're not going to be the same person. We're not going to agree on every single thing, but it's also not a competition. It's, you know what, today I'm going to back off, and this is what's important to you. Back and forth, or else you'd always be arguing, or you always be in disarray.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Yeah. And that was a good point, Joseph, because what you were talking about, that can create a lot of emotional distress, and you start feeling awkward around your partner, and you start having just this tense energy, all the time. And then you feel like you're walking on eggshells, and it's just like, it stops being fun. And it's just like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, that drains your energy when you're in these negative emotions, more so than the positive emotions when you're dealing with your partner. So thank you for your questions. The other thing is, don't let someone dictate your time and energy. Okay, this is a big one. So I hear all the time, well, we've been dating for 3 months, so I thought he was my boyfriend, or I thought she was my girlfriend because we've been dating for 3 months. Time does not equal commitment. So that requires a conversation, and that requires your permission too. Like, if someone can just say, well, we've been talking for 3 months, so you're my boyfriend. No, that should be a conversation, right? As well as dictating your energy. So for instance, someone being in your space and you've had enough of them being in your space, then there needs to be a clear line that, I'm going to go now. It's been great hanging out with you this weekend, but I got some stuff to do and I'm going to head home. Or I need you to leave because I've got some things to take care of. And however you need to word it, but your time and energy is very important to your emotional well-being on so many levels. And so that is something that you have to be clear about as well, and have boundaries around as well. A certain amount of time also doesn't equal automatic sex. That's the other thing. People think, well, it's been X amount of time, so that means we have to have sex. No, it does not. Absolutely not. Any questions about don't let someone dictate your time and energy? Nope. Any questions about anything? Nope. Oh, wow. I feel like I'm
Oh,
forgetting.
yes, I do want to say this,
Mhm.
that all of this is so true, so amazing. But I will say that what I had to do, what I learned about myself, whew, is that um I allowed everything. I allowed everything to cross my boundaries if I hadn't. Why? Because it wasn't about me. You know, I had to learn that I wasn't concerned about myself, but only concerned about being liked by or loved by someone. So forget what I wanted. What does he want? What is he interested in? What is he, and it's even hard for me to say it right now, but you know, if I do what he wants, that'll make him like me. But that's not
Mhm.
true. That is so not true. So I'm doing it the other way now. And it's taking me, I'm 53. It's taking me this long to figure out, okay, so at least if I keep myself in the place of doing what's important to me first and working on my confidence and taking care of me, because I'm really no good to him if I'm not good to myself at the end of the day. So
Yes, absolutely.
if I concentrate on that first, then at least I'm going in this with, and I'm very much I'm not that you know, I very much want to be a wife again, um who has the husband who's the head of the household. I'm not trying to be, you know, uh, I want to do everything the way God said it should be. That's what I'm
Mhm.
trying to say. But I also have to be clear about who I am.
Yes.
And so I'm doing things different and it feels different. The 8-hour date was somebody I was introduced to 6 years ago by his sister. His sister passed away, and we ended up reconnecting as a result of the funeral, you know, and now things are really different for him and for me. But I am even entering this thing different than I did the time before. He was like, "You're not the same person." You were right. I am not. And while he apologized and said I wasn't ready, neither was I. And I had to realize that too. I didn't let him take all the blame. If I had talked about him to anybody before, I was like, he's a jerk. He was not cool. He was this and that. But no, I wasn't ready either for what I thought I wanted. So in order for me to even set boundaries, like I am okay now with saying, oh, like you said, certain things you don't want. I was too afraid to say that because I'm like, what if I say that he doesn't like me? Okay.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
well. Oh well. I mean,
Yes.
I have to be okay with that. At my age, I just had a conversation in a group chat about people with kids. I'm 53 years old. My daughters are 20 and 21. I do not want I don't want to date someone with small children. And it's a lot of men over 50 with children, young children. And I'm like, no, and I gotta be clear on how often the grandkids come over.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations to you.
I want to have
Because
fun. I like to travel. I like to do things.
yes.
I like, and so that's important to me. So I am so okay now with but in order, I guess what I'm trying to say is, but there's some things to get to before you can even get to being okay with having boundaries or or having that communication. And because I wasn't for so long, my marriage might
Yes.
have lasted had I been in tune with who I was. So.
Yes. And I would say, so in my program, in my Love by Design program, the first thing we do is self-connection, because that is the first step. It's self-connection. Then it's a month. I spend a month with each person I work with on boundaries, because boundaries is so important. But you are right. The first step is that self-connection, that inner self-connection. And a lot of times We don't want to go in because we know some things are going to come up that are unresolved or that we haven't healed all the way from, and we just don't want to deal with it. It's not easy. It's not. But I'm telling you, once you get just a little bit over the hump, the other side is remarkable. It's amazing. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Do you see the chat, Farrah? Do you see the chat? It's in the chat.
Hold on, let me stop sharing so I can see the chat. What are some questions you can ask yourself to get to know your boundaries in a partnership? Ooh, that's a good question. How do we strengthen that inner self connection? So, what are some questions you can ask yourself to get to know your boundaries in a partnership? So, what you can ask yourself, and I would recommend doing this when you're alone and you have a little bit of quiet, like 5 to 10 minutes is all you need. No distractions, turn your phone over or vibrate or whatever, and no, TV or whatever. And I want you to ask God, like, God, what do I need right now? What do I need to know right now? Because, and it will come up either in your mind, like it'll just be there, or you'll feel it, or you'll see it. Any of those ways will show up. It's great to have like a piece of paper and pen with you when you do this. So if it does come up, you can jot it down real fast, and that will be something that you need to create a boundary around. Did that help? Was Diamond and Joseph that answered that question, asked that question?
Yeah, that helped. And a lot of the things that you were saying definitely can be applied to a partnership too, at least I felt like. But it's just, it's kind of hard when you're already in a partnership. Like, I wish we had this information when we first started dating, because now we have a child and we're trying to navigate a child and our partnership in itself, and find ourselves and our own confidence all at the same time. And it can be a little bit overwhelming.
It can, yeah, it can. It can.
And then Crystal had asked, when I was listening to her and she was talking about, it sounds like she gained like a lot of confidence in that discovery of self. So that's what led to my second question that I asked.
How do we strengthen that inner self connection? So it depends what kind of person you are. I am a person where, for me, it happened through writing. So when I write, I have it's like meditation for me almost, to like keep a journal and write. And sometimes in the morning, not sometimes, I do this every morning. Every morning, I wake up, I put on like some meditation music, I have my coffee, and then I ask, what do I need to know today? And whatever comes up, it could be a to-do list. It could be stop eating so much, Farrah. It could be stop eating so much sugar, Farrah. It could be listen more. I mean, it could be anything comes up. I write it down. When I start writing that down, every time more follows behind it. And before I know it, I've got a page and I'm like, wow, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on for today. These feelings right here, because this is real, this is right now. And it helped me so much. I do run a program called, I call it the Dating Detox, because it's like taking a break from all the like nonsense that goes when you're dating and the emotional baggage that you accumulate from that. But it's also good, it's good for anyone. Because what it is every morning I'm emailing you questions, and it prompts you to respond to these questions that creates self-connection. So the next time I run that program, I will share it with Thomas, so he can share it with you guys if you're interested in signing up for it. It's a 30-day program, and you get an email every single morning at 6 a.m. with coaching for self-connection and journal prompts to write out your responses. And it's very helpful. And it's for men and women. Is it possible to have too many deal breakers? Yes. Yes, you can have too many deal breakers. So really, it should just be like 1 to 2 deal breakers for you, because you're prioritizing what's most important. So everything cannot be important. So for me, smoking, like, he can drink. Obviously, I don't want an alcoholic, but I don't mind if he drinks. I don't mind if he eats like junk food from time to time. But if I'm like, no, he can't smoke. No, he can't eat junk food. No, they can't have any children. No, he can never be divorced. Like, that starts to be like, you're excluding a lot of people, because everyone's flawed. Everyone's flawed. And I also realized I can't ask for a deal breaker if it's one of mine. Like, if it's a characteristic or a trait that I have, I can't be asking someone else not to have it. So that's why I'm like, I don't smoke, and I won't be smoking, and I don't care to take up smoking. Any other questions?
Hey, Farrah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to add a little something to Diamond and Joseph's questions. I thought they were awesome. Just a couple of things I've done in the past. The one about what are some questions you can ask yourself to get to know your boundaries. And I still do this, not as often. I don't have to do it as often because I just know now. But what I really started asking myself was, why did I get so angry? Or why was I so upset? Or why was I so sad? Or why did it hurt my feelings? Or why this, why that, why? Even if it was a situation where I didn't feel like I was in the wrong, I wanted to understand my reaction, or I wanted to understand my lack of reaction. I wanted to understand my feelings. And so that really helped me, because I'm like, oh, wait, if this person wasn't trying, if they weren't intentionally hurting my feelings, then I just need to set a boundary, right? I just need to set the boundary, because then if they know and they do it, they are trying to intentionally hurt me, or, make me upset, or whatever the situation is. Especially if you're in a situation where you're both alphas, then it takes away some of it gives the other person like the benefit of the doubt in terms of intent. Like, if this person cares about me, if they love me, why did this hurt me, or why did I react, or blah, 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 but it just turns it back on yourself. So it helps you understand how you actually feel. And then the second one, how do we strengthen that inner self-connection? I do this literally all the time. I always think about, is this my ideal self? And so, like you said, writing things down really helps. So if you need to write it down and you're like, so I am this, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, whether that's loving or caring or providing, whatever those things are in your ideal self, if you can look at that, or you can think about that, and then you're like, oh man, like I snapped, or like, there I am, fly about the mouth again. Ooh, like, is that my ideal self? Maybe not, but you can get closer and closer, and you don't even need somebody else. You can pull in somebody else to help you. But if you're trying to build that confidence and it's a one-on-one thing, you know what, this is not the person that ideally I would be. So if you can get a little bit closer to that, then like every day, then it helps you feel better about yourself, or it helped me feel better about myself. Let me say it like that.
Yeah.
Can I say this?
I agree.
Can I say this? That first of all, Diamond and Joseph, the fact that you're on together is already a great thing. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, for me, where it started was I was always comparing myself. Well, especially with my husband, with who he left for. And it wasn't necessarily who he left for, but what he left was a situation that he created. Now she's having fun, and she's having the same fun with him 18 years before when I met him. But he created a mess. and went over there. And what I had to understand was, okay, I can't take on his issues. I can't blame myself for that. But what I can do is start self-reflecting, work on me, understand how good I am, understand the good person that I am, and then understand that God, if it's in his will provide the person that I need. And it is still a daily struggle. It is still something I'm like, even with this person or anybody that I've gone out with, I get in my head sometimes. So it's a constant thing that I deal with. But I'm just encouraged by you two that you're on together. So I just have to say that part.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And Crystal, to just to validate what you're saying, I get in my head even still now, and I always go back to this one question, or not question, but statement, that everyone every day is just trying to do the best they can with what they have at the moment. So like my partner did not wake up like, I'm taking down Farrah today. Like nobody thinks that. My boss doesn't think that. They're not like, oh, Farrah's going down today, I've mastered this plan. Nobody thinks that. But doing the best that they can come across sometimes and step on my triggers or push my buttons or irritate me, but they don't know that. And so, like Crystal said, it is a daily process, and it gets easier and easier when you implement those tools that I shared about writing, journaling, self-reflection, interconnection, all those things. But yeah, that's a statement I always go back to when I'm about ready to, like, I want to fly off at the mouth and tell them what I think. A minute. Now, they didn't do that on purpose. They're trying to hurt me. They don't know. So, yeah. Anything else?
Farrah, you mentioned that sometimes you'll pop off at the mouth. How do you stop yourself?
You know what? Because I'm talking to myself. So when I am saying things to someone, these are things I've said to myself, that mental talk, that self-talk. So there were times where I'm in my head calling myself stupid. I'm an idiot. You're so dumb, Farrah. I can't believe you did this. What the hell's your problem? Like, this is how my mental chatter inside my head would go. So then it was easier to pop off to someone else when they did something that irritated me. So when I changed how I talked to myself, it automatically changed how I talked outwardly to someone else. And that is something I continue to work on. I catch myself when I am doing negative self-talk. I'm like, okay, wait, this is not helpful for me. Talking negatively to myself, that is not helpful for me. I cannot be a good mom and a good coach and a good matchmaker if I'm trashing myself. So how am I helping this person be better by trashing them?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Farrah, if I could add one thing for Diamond, I'm that person that can very much be fly about the mouth as well. But in our relationship, Dr. made it very clear that that was one of his things, one of his deal breakers, was that fly about the mouth, talking crazy kind of thing. So because what's important to him is important to me, when that, it still rises up in me. I didn't just wake up one day and not be who I've been for the last 45 years up until I made the decision not to do it. But it goes back to, you know what, this is one of those things. So if his happiness is truly important to you, then you will squash it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Is it still there? Of course it is. But it's almost habitual now that if I'm upset, I have learned to control my words. I learned to control my emotions, because it's one of those things that he made quite clear. He set that boundary. I respect that boundary. So I know that's something about myself that it's one of those that I have to step back. And so it comes back to that partnership that we were talking about. If your partner's happiness and them being comfortable with you and them being able to talk to you, come to you, communicate with you is what's really important, then sometimes you have to make the sacrifice to make that comfort a thing. And it's not, you have to take yourself out of the way. And so 100% is what I've had to do with that. Because I've always been that way. And I've always had an excuse of saying, well, that's just me. I've always said I'm a screamer. I'm an arguer. Well, am I? Because today I'm not. And it's a
Yeah.
constant choice.
Right. And Diamond, do you want to fight or do you want him to understand you? So you just gotta pick your battles, and you gotta know. I had to, and this is something else I'm learning. Like, timing is everything. So when you can get the person's attention at the right time, and this is with anything, relationships, work, whatever. If you can, timing is everything. And because I know if you coming at me screaming or upset, I'm gonna get defensive first. So it'll be hard to listen. So I was the same as Phoebe. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready. I'm defending myself because I've had to. But if I'm interested and I'm learning, plus at my age, I'm too old to fight. So
I just want y'all to know, just for clarification purposes, I was not talking about myself. Joseph asked the question.
All right now.
He's the one that popped up at the mouth.
Oh, Joseph. Awesome.
Diamond on
He's defensive.
Because I'm
So you
still
gotta go to
trying to
bed.
gain self-esteem in myself, you know. So it's a journey on, like, and then I be apologizing too. Like, I admit that I pop out sometimes, and I cut her off talking sometimes. Like, I don't be meaning to, but sometimes I just can't stop talking. I don't know. I don't know whether it's my ADHD or not. I don't know, but yeah.
just give it, just wait. Just give it a minute before you speak. Think about it. Think about it.
Yeah. Also, speaking slower will also let some of that air out as you're talking. So it's not like, and it just like run tongue. That's another technique I do is I start talking slower. And some of that stuff starts leaving my brain that's negative. And it's like I say what I need to say, not always what I feel is gonna jug them in the in the throat. I thank you guys so much for being here. This was some really great conversation. I love the questions. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much. Give you everyone on this call, give yourself a hand for being vulnerable. I see Jamal put in the comments, this is one of the most balanced conversations I've heard in a long time. I would have to agree. And this is what Open Mic Night is all about. You know, this is what this platform is all about. We need each other. We need community. We need like-minded individuals to come together in this space. Like I said before in the beginning, with leave out with hope, because this is a space of non-judgment. And so let's celebrate Farrah for her dedication, her gifts on tonight. Have y'all been equipped, educated, and elevated tonight? Yeah. All right, I see some hand claps, some virtual hand claps.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
And so I don't think this is Farrah's last time she's gonna be on here. I believe she will be back.
I'll be back on the 24th.
She'll be back on the 24th. She will be back on the 24th. So let the people know, Farrah, what you're gonna be talking about 24th.
Honestly, Thomas, I have forgotten.
But she's gonna be back. So you're in for a treat. She gave me some topics, but she'll be back with us on not next week, but the following week on the 24th. I believe she's gonna talk about the ugly truth of dating.
Oh yeah, the ugly truth of dating.
So I've never heard this talk, but I believe it's gonna be a good one.
So is this every week, or this is every other week?
This is every second and fourth Thursday of the month.
Oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do on my third week when I might have an 8 hour. I'm just kidding.
So very good question, which leads me to the announcement. So real quick, for those of you that are here and would like to connect with Open Mic Night, the link is in the chat right now, the link tree. If you click that link, it'll take you to all of the cruise link that you can access within one link, our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And so connect with us so that you can receive updates and what's happening here at the crew. So it's a young adult ministry. This is one of the offerings that we have. And so if you've enjoyed Open Mic Night, look forward to seeing you back here again. And if you've learned something tonight, I heard somebody say, I wish I had this information before. So if you know somebody that needs this information, share this link with them. We're on Facebook and almost all social media platforms. So let's continue to grow our community one mind at a time. All right. Any questions about that? How to access that link?
Thank you guys. This was great. This is really
Thank
great.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Farrah. It was great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
All right.
All right. Everybody have a good night, and I will see you all the 24th.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.